Hello and welcome back to the SecurityMetrics podcast. My name is Jen Stone and I'm one of the principal security analysts here at SecurityMetrics. Very happy today to be able to speak with Willy Fabritius. Willy has a Master of Science in Computer Science. For more than 25 years, Willy has held management positions with organizations in the private sector. His experience in management systems goes back to 1994 when he implemented an ISO 9002-1994 QMS at a stamping facility in Germany that got certified in less than 12 months. Willy has conducted several thousand audits for numerous organizations, including multiple Fortune 100 organizations against a variety of standards. ISO 9001, ISO 27001, CISA Star, ISO 27701, and ISO 22301. Willy has worked for several global certification bodies and delivered audits in APAC, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, and spoken at several global events. Willy joined SGS as the Global Head for Security and Business Development, Information Security Assurance in 2021. Willy, welcome. Tell people a little bit more about yourself and maybe a little bit about SGS.
First of all, Jen, thank you very much for having me on your show. Much appreciated. And yes, my name is Willy Fabritius, and as already said, I'm working for SGS. So you introduced myself already, so really no need to add to that, other than I'm also representing the IIOC, the International Independent Organization of Certification Bodies, at a couple of ISO committees. So I'm now really privileged to contribute to future standards and future editions of existing standards. SGS is a Swiss-based company, headquartered in Geneva, listed at the Zurich Stock Exchange. And we have about 96,000 people or so, 6.5 billion Swiss francs revenue on an annual base. And for all intents and purposes, we are the world's largest TIC company, test, inspection, certification company. And that really means we are testing things. We are inspecting things, certifying management systems and objects. Now, you say things. Can you be a little bit more specific? Sure, if you have, the next 3 days time, I'm more than happy to talk about food safety, oil and gas, nutrition, oil platforms, cars, vehicles, and so on and so forth. Medical devices, whatever needs a third-party assurance that regulations are being fulfilled, we can jump in, we can help clients to get an independent third-party view and confirmation and assurance that these things are indeed fulfilling the applicable requirements.
That is a great way to put it. A lot of times people ask me, well, why do I have to get audited? Or they're kind of cranky about that. And we're doing all the right things. Why do you have to come and audit us? Well, that third-party assurance is really essential for a lot of organizations who are trying to prove that they meet a certain standard to their customers, to service providers, to government bodies, to whatever it is. So, and we at SecurityMetrics, we don't do any of the ISO audits. So I'm very excited to have you on to be able to talk us through some of those things and to be able to talk specifically about, I think, what is arguably the topic of the year, artificial intelligence. AI is, people are buzzing about it. It's hit the meme world, which means everybody knows about it now. but I guess my question, first of all, is AI hype? Is this going to fade away? What are maybe some of the opportunities and risks that you see associated with it? Give me that high level view of AI in your opinion.
Sure. There's a German word that is called Jein. Jein is ja and nein at the same time. Yes and no at the same time. Is it hype? Yes, in a certain way it is. On the other hand, I also believe that there is some heightened awareness across the general population, and that leads to that hype. But in generally, speaking, I do not think it's a hype. It's more something like people talk about it, people are getting aware of it, and that's cool. That's great. Will it go away? AI will not go away. The hype will go away because that's just how things work in terms of the buzzword of the year. I remember 15 years ago, cloud computing was the buzzword, and everyone said cloud, and nobody really knew what cloud was other than maybe a handful of experts. And now nobody is talking about it other than the real experts, but everyone is using it without really realizing that all those services we are leveraging are cloud-based. I mean, even the system we are using right now to record this podcast is cloud-based. But are we talking about that? No, we are not.
No.
And in terms of AI, it's really not that new. I actually checked Siri. Apple Siri was first introduced in October 2011. Let's sink that in for a sec, right? In 2011, Apple had already a system that was remarkably good and is still very excellent, where you just talk and Siri recognizes your commands, your statements, and translates that into responses. Well, that's AI. So that's already 11, 12 years old technology, let alone all the other stuff that fall into AI. But I think in recent months, there was some, change. And those changes are in particular coming from these big language models like ChatGPT. And people realize that, well, they enter a phrase, a question, and that there's that word again, is creating some apparently very intelligent response. And that is remarkable because that is really new technology, but that's really coming from the fact that computing power is way, way better than it was just a couple of years ago. And that is just getting more and more. And we will see more and more intelligent systems that will help us to master all kinds of challenges we have. Are there risks? Absolutely. But as already said, I'm coming from the ISO world. So I must admit I'm a little bit biased. So for me, the word risk, the definition given by ISO is the degree of uncertainty. So when I'm drinking this cup of coffee, there's a certain risk that it falls into my lap because there is a certain uncertainty to that. But there's also an uncertain level of uncertainty that there might be a plane crashing onto my house because I'm very close to Chicago's O'Hare. But that is level of uncertainty. But usually the word risk is associated with a negative meaning. But risk can also be a positive meaning, can have a positive impact. When I'm investing, there's a certain risk that I win, that my investment gain in value. Sometimes just learn. There's a certain risk that your investment gains in value. Yes, there's a certain level of uncertainty. And people are not really used to that kind of usage of the word risk. But I think that the biggest challenge for organizations will be to not be aware and not utilizing AI. In the future, there are only two kinds of companies that are using AI and companies that don't exist.
That's a pretty bold statement there. So what you're saying is you think the AI is going to be intrinsic to how we do work, that there's no parsing it out from the regular day-to-day. Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So with that in mind, what are the issues you can see for companies either developing or using AI?
I think the biggest challenge will be understanding, really grasping what AI is and then making the right decisions to use it in one or the other way. And then there is the problem of talent, which is a little bit of the reflection of the first thing, right? Understanding and talent. If we don't know individually, that's okay. But as a group of people, as a company, we must understand AI, we must understand the implications, and we must understand how we are going to use it. But if there are not enough people that do understand it, then we've got a serious issue, because then we are just blindly using it. And if we don't understand what's behind it, we will get in trouble. And that is one of the issues I can foresee for many organizations, that they may use some kind of AI system for automated decision processes, and then it bites them and they are surprised.
So, so knowledge about how to use it, not just for developing it, but really knowing AI so that you can properly use it in whatever application that you need. Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I mean, there was, for example, a case where a lawyer was representing one of his clients and tried to sue an airline for some kind of stuff that happened on the plane. The lawyer went to ChatGPT and asked for example cases.
Mm-hmm.
ChatGPT provided him with 3 cases. He puts those cases into his filing with the court. Well, it turns out that all 3 were bogus and never existed.
Right. I heard about that. AI just made those cases up.
Yes. And that goes, in terms of trustworthiness of AI, that goes in terms of transparency of AI. And the normal person will not understand these concepts because, well, if I type something in Google, I need to assume it's correct, isn't it? Right?
I never assume that Google's right. However, I get where you're coming from. That if you're asking for information, you want to make sure that information is in some way accurate. You can back it up. You can go find it in the real world, right?
Yes.
And so, is that what you mean by trustworthiness?
Yeah. Yes.
Gosh, what's the big buzzword we heard the last 3 years in a row? Trust the experts. And I think that a lot of times that's going to be shifted to trust the AI. Well, how do we know that the information we're getting out of a system is correct when we know that there is a huge problem already in our world with different opinions being censored, with different information being hidden, with knowledge that we all had easy, ready access to in the past not being available to us? How is AI going to help that? It seems like that, these come down to the topics of bias and fairness and trustworthiness, right? I look at it and I am concerned that the speeds at which our systems can function mean that AI is only going to create further problems with that topic and further rifts in belief systems because of it. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think in the past we were talking about the economic divide. Then we were talking about the digital divide. Mm-hmm. And I think that in the future we'll talk about the AI divide. In terms of people, having different income classes, different ability and capabilities to access digital services, different levels of access to AI, and maybe even different levels of quality of AI. And what I mean with quality is, fulfilling expressed and non-expressed expectations of me as the user. So when I'm asking an AI for an answer, I expect the right answer. But the right answer could be based upon my interpretation of the world. And, I don't want to go back into recent history in terms of politics, but let's make that example. The right answer for COVID is, getting vaccinated, not getting vaccinated. It's not necessarily a medical question. It's, among others, a political question. All kinds of things are related upon what we individuals see as the truth.
Right.
And that is potentially being influenced by the AI. And if the AI is matching our perspective, of course it's trustworthy. On the other hand, if the AI is giving us a contrary view, something like, cannot trust that stuff. So that's one of the challenges I can see.
So I guess that comes back to some of my foundational concerns, which is what shapes the AI, what creates the best solution for AI. This is a hard conversation. If you want to talk about it, not bringing politics into it, because the speed at which information flows is what shapes our beliefs and our understanding, and is what shapes our politics. And honestly, that feels like something that is happening currently because of the speed of information, but also more importantly because of the speed of censoring of information.
Yes.
So how do we create this? How do we have transparency in artificial intelligence? How do we have accountability to what feeds the knowledge base of any AI system? Is this something that an ISO could cover? Is this something that how do we make sure that there is a fair and balanced approach to any information we're getting from an AI system?
Yeah, I think it comes down to having an holistic approach. You cannot just look at one aspect. You really need to look at the entire, let's say, ecosystem of the AI. And let's face it, the AI by itself is just a tool. It's a hammer and a nail. How you use that hammer and that nail, that's really up to you. But the real question is, how did you determine what kind of hammer you need? How did you determine that hammer is suitable for the application that you are using it for? And then later on, what kind of mechanisms do you have in place to ensure that the hammer is indeed properly used?
Right.
And I'm sorry to say, but that sounds like a classical example of a management system. Something that many people know in terms of quality management system from an ISO 9001 perspective, or information security management system from a 27001 perspective. All those systems are in place to ensure, or should I say, to provide guidance to organizations to implement a solid system that is repeatable and can be audited, can be verified, and therefore can get some kind of stamp of approval from an external body that says, yeah, you do have a solid foundation. That doesn't mean that the outcome is guaranteed to be perfect. There is this sad statement, and unfortunately it's true. You can make and you can produce concrete life-saving vests as an ISO 9001 certified company. That's okay.
Well, I'm pretty sure that a concrete life-saving jacket is not going to give you the outcome you were hoping for, though. I mean, unless you're,
in terms of certification, that would be okay, right? Because if the specification says needs to be out of concrete, needs to fit, a particular body size and shape, and you make that, that's cool.
And you met the specifications correctly.
Yes. And that is obviously not fulfilling the intent. I get that, right? But that is, I think, highlighting just being certified doesn't mean that the outcome is desirable. But at least there is some kind of general understanding that there is a solid system in place.
So starting with what is our intended outcome, again, I think brings a lot of human elements into an AI system that people might not be aware that the human element, what do you want it to tell you, is going to affect what it does tell you. So I'm wondering, there are also a lot of people who are concerned that AI is going to take their jobs. Have you put thought into that? The people are worried about the change, just basically the changes in how we work based on AI.
Yes. I think that every technical change, any technical development will lead to changes in the job market. And I say intentionally changes because, yes, it will lead to losses of jobs, but at the same time will create new jobs. I mean, how many whip manufacturers for buggies are still in business today?
Not as many as there were in the 1800s.
How many, train engineers are still there putting the coal and the wood into the engine? Oh, there are no such engines any longer. Oopsie doopsie, right? How many secretaries are still out there? Right? I mean, and this is just an example of that there are periods of time where jobs will go away, but at the same time, a large number of new jobs will be created. And I think it's really up to the individual to be resilient to those changes and upskill him herself on a regular basis to learn new things. If you are a creative writer and you're not using ChatGPT, you might want to you are missing something, and you might want to invest some time to learn about it. I'm not saying that you must use it today, but going forward, there will be the need to use this kind of tools in one way or the other.
I think a kind of a recent, just to maybe interject, one that I saw happen very recently was so many networking engineers were worried that cloud computing was going to put them out of a job. As it turns out, most of the organizations that I work with who are using cloud implementations need network engineers. They just have to know how security groups work in a cloud implementation. And those organizations that maybe rely on their development team to create that are often less secure because they don't understand some basics of networking that a network engineer brings to the table. But it's in the cloud environment rather than on-prem. And so, a lot of people who were concerned about that, the job morphed, and they had to learn some different skills and specifics to what they do. But the interest in how networking creates communication paths and connects all of us together and how to make those secure, that's still there. And so people who are interested in that still have that job. And I think in a lot of ways, AI is going to support changes, maybe some similar changes, maybe some more massive changes. I don't think we know yet what the impact of AI is going to be.
Yes. And I think that is the fundamental reason why people are concerned.
As you said, a lot of people are worried, concerned, the change, and not knowing what the changes are going to result in. A lot of people are talking about, we should regulate this, we should legislate this. I personally get very frustrated with people who always want to add a new law whenever something's changing or they don't like it. But that seems to be the nature of large groups of people. Are we legislating this? Well, what do you know about that? Is there legislation? Are there regulations? What are our political bodies doing in response to AI?
Yes. We are all the victims of some stupid people in the past. Think about speed limit on a road. Usually, we have a good sense for what is the right speed, because we drive the car on a regular basis. Yeah. We know the environment. We automatically adjust.
Yes.
But still, there used to be, and there are still many people who just simply don't get it. And that's the reason why we have the speed limits. Because apparently, people must have some kind of limitations imposed upon them. Once again, there's this logical versus the emotional versus whatever thing we have. So yes, there will be regulations. And yes, once again, I recently heard a very interesting statement from an EU representative that said, China and the US are definitely military superpowers, but the EU is a superpower when it comes to regulation.
Yeah.
And
yep, it is.
yes, we definitely see already the EU AI Act. Right now, it's just a proposal from the parliament, but sooner or later that will be, a regulation, will be a law. And fundamentally, it says that AI needs to be done in such a way that it protects people. And I think this is a great thing, because at the end of the day, all technologies can be used for the good as well as for the bad.
An interesting thing happened this week where Zoom updated its privacy policies to say that it's going to use your interaction, your use of Zoom to educate its AI implementation, and you don't have the ability to opt out, which made a lot of people very concerned about privacy. And it makes me wonder what is privacy in the context of AI? We don't have to talk about Zoom specifically, but it just made me feel like, how do we create, educate, tune AI systems and keep privacy at the forefront?
I think there is also connection to intended use, transparency, and ethics.
Mm-hmm.
So if a company that is providing communication services is using the data coming from those communication services to train the AI, for example, for transcription services, and is transparent about that, I think that's cool. That's enhancing the capabilities of the product.
Mm-hmm.
But who says that AI is also not used for industrial espionage?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And if a company doesn't spell that out, I'm sorry, there is no trust.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It comes back to the trustworthy question, doesn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
If the company, let's say Zoom, says we are using that communication platform to train our AI system for the purpose of training for transcription services and nothing else, wonderful. Thank you very much. I have no problems using that system. But if they just say, for whatever we deem appropriate, I'm sorry, done, delete it, remove.
Companies yada yada our privacy too much. They need to be more specific and more transparent and more accountable, for sure. I feel like so a lot of our laws are based on an assumption of privacy. And so if there is no presumption of privacy in certain ways, then some certain different laws don't apply. And so when we look at the continued gathering of information and assimilation of information and how highly AI is going to speed this, does it mean going forward there is no presumption of privacy? And we no longer have that freedom to move in some of these maybe gray areas, whether they're good or whether they're bad, or whether somebody else thinks they're good or bad, or how, without even labeling them, it seems like it feels more restrictive the less privacy we have.
Yes, and I also think that it requires that we are thinking things through in more detail.
Mm-hmm.
For example, there is that story that AI can be used obviously for facial recognition. We all know that.
Yep.
But facial recognition is not just face. It's also facial recognition on a picture. So if you're posting on Facebook or whatever social media, I'm in Hawaii, well, put that together, all of a sudden people will be able to track you where you are.
Right.
And that is not just, by the way, my home is empty, feel free to burglar me, right?
Right.
But it's all kinds of implications that may leads to loss of privacy. Now, it's up to you to post that picture. Remember, there's no law that says they shall post their pictures on Facebook while on vacation. But the question is, are we aware of that? And if we are aware, are we willing to take that risk?
Right. And it feels like the posting on social media, we got sold a bill of goods on that one for sure. Everybody got, frankly, addicted to it and are still addicted to it and have the belief that they don't exist without posting. Pictures or didn't happen is a pretty common statement, right? So when we feel these social drivers to post everything about ourselves and don't also have the understanding that we are sacrificing privacy and that AI is going to just drive this speeding towards this cliff of non-privacy, it seems like there are things that we are not yet considering in the use of AI. It's just going to compound problems that we already have socially and personally.
And the other thing that I really would like to emphasize is the risk of bias. Let's be brutally honest. We as humans are all biased in one way or the other. The good thing is that sometimes, or most of us, are hopefully able to discover the bias and counteract. But with an AI, there is no mechanism, at least that I know of, to counteract that bias. And that can have profound implications on individuals, can have profound implications on companies.
Right.
Once again, that colleague I spoke with in Australia this morning on a different occasion, he told me that he uploaded his picture to apply for Australian citizenship. It was declined because his teeth were visible. And then he showed us the picture, and no, there were no teeth visible. The problem is, he is a man from Pakistan wearing a full beard. So black hair, black beard, and the only light, let's say, white area are the lips.
So
therefore,
whatever
the AI interpreted that white area of the lips, or the lighter area of the lips, as teeth, therefore rejected it.
Because it assumed that he didn't follow the rules on uploading a picture. So that's very interesting. And how do we, that's a very small and specific way that bias might be introduced, but you can see how that could be affected in broader ways if there's no way to detect that in our AI systems and find a way to counter it.
Yes.
And I think
so where's the complaint mechanism? Where's the adjustment mechanism? Right.
Well, this is. I'm worried that we have left people with a very depressing set of information. What can you wrap it up with some positive notes on AI?
Yes, I'm optimistic. So I'm not the kind of doomsday kind of guy. By my very nature, I identify challenges for the purpose of identifying opportunities. And that is something, in terms of, is there a challenge with regard buying a house? Yes, of course. But at the same time, there is the opportunity to build equity over time, right? And it's something like, okay, but you said that there is a risk of buying a house. Yeah, there is a risk drinking coffee. Who knows, right? So I'm not the kind of person that says AI is bad and AI has all negative things. I'm identifying the potential risks for the purpose of mitigating them. Because only if we know the potential risks, we can implement countermeasures, we can implement controls to mitigate those risks. And that is what really the important message is.
Well, I sure appreciate you talking to me today, Willie. We'll make sure that people can find you on LinkedIn and various places and hear more about what you have to say. I think we could talk for quite a while about AI. It's a fascinating topic, and it's going to be interesting to see what direction it goes.
Yes, indeed. So thank you very much for having me. And as you said, I'm available on LinkedIn. If somebody is looking for me, it's Willy Fabritius. There's only one of us. And also feel free to reach out to me at willy.fabritius@sgs.com. And by the way, we also have a white paper published about the subject of trustworthy AI. So if the audience is interested in getting more information about either ISO 42001, which is the upcoming AI management system standard, which is, as of this morning, still in that phase between DIS and FDIS, draft international standard and final draft.
Okay.
But I expect that the final draft will be published in the next couple of days, hopefully.
Excellent.
So if somebody's interested in learning more about that or interested in the white paper I just mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me on either LinkedIn or send me an email. More than happy to help and support in whatever way possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. To watch more episodes of SecurityMetrics podcast, click on the box on the left. If you prefer to listen to this podcast, it's available on all your favorite podcast platforms. See you on the slopes.